Everyone, welcome to the first season of the Hardtech Podcast. The Hardtech Podcast is about bringing together innovators, builders, investors, and thought leaders all in the world of hardtech. In my background in starting software companies that I've scaled and exited, there's so much content out there for folks building in the software space and not as much in the hardware space. And that's exactly why the Hardtech Podcast exists. In this episode, we sit down with Eric Martinez, founder and CEO of Modjoul. Imagine your first customer being Amazon and having to figure out how to build, scale, and deploy hundreds of thousands of units before you've ever got your first units off the manufacturing line. This story is deep. It's a real story and success story of what it means to truly grow and scale in the hardtech arena. It's a workplace safety platform. I really think you guys are going to enjoy this. And for all the startup founders out there, this is really what it means to come up against barriers that seem insurmountable and make it past them. I think you enjoy. Well, everybody, welcome back to the Hardtech Podcast. I'm your host, DeAndre Hericus, with the usual suspect, Grant Chapman.
How's it going, everybody?
And we've got a super exciting guest in Eric Martinez, CEO of Modjoul, a workplace safety application. We got connected on LinkedIn or email, and
one of those.
The internet connected us.
Yeah. Based out of South Carolina, just so happened to be in Chicago for your son's PhD
in CUCS.
That's awesome.
So if we all could look at that up, but it's something to do with stem cells and what cell body produces. But he just got his PhD from University of Chicago.
Yeah, congratulations.
That's
there.
Amazing.
Just so happened to be in Chicago, so he said, "Hey, I'll drive down so we get He's in person, which is super exciting. He actually brought some really fun gadgets for us to look at it and play with and show off. I'd love to get just quick little intro on the company and the background, and we were diving into so many different topics leading into this, but yeah, this would be a great episode.
Yeah, thanks, DeAndre. And so, Modjoul started about 9 years ago. We started to prevent repetitive motion injuries, and I was a former insurance executive, and we saw that most of our bills were being paid out on low strains, back injuries, and stuff like that, and we were spending a lot of money basically in opiates and not trying to prevent the injury.
Yeah, just smoothing over the problem.
Exactly. Just, hey, it's easier to kind of just give someone a pill than try to actually fix the real reason what was going on. So I left AIG and I started Modjoul to kind of address that issue around repetitive motion injuries.
That's amazing. And so what was the very first repetitive motion you were trying to tackle, and what tech were you using when you started to track that?
Yeah, so we were going after the lumbar. Liberty Mutual does a really nice job of showing every type of injury that happens in the workplace.
The actuaries are good at this. They're super good at big data.
They exactly know what percent of the body part. It's $110 billion a year companies spend on injuries.
Really?
But then when you start breaking it down to the type of injuries, like fall from heights, getting crushed by a machine, repetitive motion, chemicals, bee stings, breaking it all down to those subsectors, you kind of try to find your market. And we found our market on repetitive motion and lumbar strains. Mm-hmm. And everybody always has this aching back. And we said, that's our market to go after. And lo and behold, we land the largest customer in Amazon to kind of start our company.
That is so great. Now, how did you make that first connection?
I think it was, I would hate to say trade show, because we never ever get a customer from a trade show. We always feel great after trade shows.
Yep, sure.
Wow, all these companies stopped at our booth, and what happened?
Created action in motion, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And look how popular we were. We got 47 leads from this trade show.
Yeah, none of us called back. Yeah.
None of us called. Yeah. A week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, nothing. Crickets. And so I want to say trade show, but I know that's not the case. So I think it was just pure old outreach, and somebody knew somebody of knew somebody. And of course, Amazon has been in the news a lot with at least in the past, with their injuries. Yep. And lo and behold, we got one pilot in a small warehouse in South Carolina, moved over to a warehouse in Maryland. Yep. And next thing you know, we're kind of just growing.
That is got to be such a fun ride, but a terrifying one in hardtech. Because unlike software, you're like, oh yes, pull up the servers, rent more AWS space. You guys have to go scale production and support and your whole supply chain to meet that demand as you scale. And that rate can be an exciting part of the journey.
Yeah, I mean, the three things that you kind of think about with the hardtech, you got your hardware design. Mm-hmm. So is it fit for purpose? Is it the function, the form and the function? Then you got your software. Where is your data going to go? How are you going to organize it? Multifamily. Then you got to protect it, from everybody hackers, and then you're going to be able to scale it. You got that, and then you have that on steroids when you're talking to a customer like Amazon, and then you have your firmware. And then how do all those sensors talk to the processor that talks to the Wi-Fi?
And how do you get that in your customer's IT stack and get approvals?
Yeah, then you go through the information security review, and they talk about pen testing and SOC 2 audits and vulnerability tests, and you're like a startup going, what the hell did I just get into?
Right.
And I thought I was just building a piece of hardware.
Yeah, it's incredible though, like that you guys had to do that so fast to land probably the largest client, a dream client. Was your first one, and I mean, what a story there, right?
It is the dream client, and I think later on we'll go into kind of almost like the nightmare client as well.
That's the double-edged sword of what scaling so fast means.
Yeah, there's a double-edged sword of really trying to choose who your first clients are. You never want to really cut your teeth on your dream client.
Yeah,
you'd love to find the guy down the road, and we did. We're out of South Carolina, a lot of industry in South Carolina to kind of cut your teeth on, let people wear it. One of the things that we do with a lot with bending and our wearable is on the waist. And so if you have a dad bod or a beer belly, the device automatically sits at an angle. So it automatically looks like the body is bending.
Interesting.
And so how do you account for all these different body
how do you do
sites?
Your offsets of like, oh no, this is where my device sits. We're going delta from standing. But how do you detect standing versus sitting versus bending?
Yeah, standing, sitting, bending, walking, twisting.
Yeah.
We laying down. We hired a ton of Clemson students that modeled all this and taught probably almost 1,000 Clemson students that we modeled tons of different activities. And the problem you see with Clemson students or any kind of college student, they're pretty much in shape. They don't quite have the dad bod yet.
Right. They still got the high school, coming out in the college, right?
And so all our models are like these guys and gals with 32-inch, 30-inch waists, 26-inch waists.
Metabolism of a hummingbird.
And we get to into the real world where you're dealing with 40-year-olds, 45-year-olds, 38-year-olds.
Yeah, they've already got the wife. They've already got the.
They're not as in shape and force. So your kind of data set was off.
It's like a tree, right? The older it gets, the more rings it gets. It just expands outward radially.
And so luckily we were able to kind of just figure all that out with our models. We do use, and I hate to say the word AI, not to say it as a buzzword, but we had to use supervised machine learning random forest to kind of predict what everybody does.
Well, and so we say you're using machine learning. You have a large data set and you define the patterns and you can give it true sources to learn patterns from.
That's correct.
Machine learning, we know how it works. We know it can find the statistical likelihood of a thing happening because you gave it the right answer. It's not the modern generative AI that is like black box. No one knows how the math works on the inside. It just does. Yeah.
So it's exactly the way it works, Grant. Dead on. And so we taught the model what a bend looks like, what a step looks like, what sitting down looks like. What does someone look like when they're driving on a piece of machinery? And that's basically the way the whole system works is there's a base set of movements that we've trained the model on. And then when an employee shows up to work, we know what's good and then what we know what's bad.
Yep.
And then, you have the ultimate problem of the dashboard.
Yeah. How do you use the data for good?
Yeah. How do you use the data for good? And of course, every single company wants to look at it a different way.
Right.
And, so then we learn, APIs and, how do we just let them call up our metrics
right.
and design the dashboard the way we want. And, we think about the black hole of startups sometimes. I think the black hole, one of the big things is IT costs. You can spend as much money as you want on IT costs, really just on dashboard design.
And why is that?
It's every company is a glove. You got to think of them as a 5-finger glove and not a mitten. And they have their operations and they know how to run their operations and they run them really well. And you're now trying to come in there and show them new data that's never seen before.
Put it into a workflow that they've got locked down in concrete for the last decade.
And they think they're good. And they think all their employees work hard and they think they're all in compliance with all their movements and stuff like that. And we come in and show them that 80% of the work gets done, in 20% of the time.
Interesting.
And, or, items like this that half of their operations does it wrong. And they're like, oh, well, I'm not thinking this is that great now.
Right. And then how do we fix that?
And they almost don't even want to see that data potentially.
Who in the organization? Right. Like you, the executive level, like, no, it's all great. I don't hear anything bad.
Exactly.
You have that, director level that actually cares about making efficiencies because they need to grow the business. Like their metric, reporting up is need to affect change. And then you have the actual people on the floor that absolutely don't want Big Brother watching over their shoulder, changing what they do.
You nailed it, Grant. Exactly. Yeah. The supervisors are saying, hey, I've run these people my whole life, and I think I've done a great job.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Who's
and
this
I'm
company
not
coming?
fight them.
Yeah. Who's this
I don't
company
pay the
coming
insurance
in?
premiums. I'm not going to go die on this hill.
And it kind of leads into something that we wanted to touch on in the podcast around like preventative help versus like after the problem has already happened, and dive into that a little bit for us.
Yeah, where in that stack do you get the buy-in for preventative, and who fights back internally, and then we can expand on who the actual payers are for these kind of equipment, and how does this market work?
Yeah, so I mean, every time you build or buy something inside a company, everything's based upon an ROI.
Yep.
And so, you think about the ROI, it's the expense over your capital that you spent on the product. And so for us...
And the cost of capital for how long it takes you to pay it back.
Yeah. And so if they're actually even more sophisticated, they'll throw a cost of capital on you if they think a 3, 4, 5 year return is needed to be able to pay for it versus monthly. I want my payback in 3 months.
Yeah.
And so you get in this kind of, hey, you got to prove the business case in. And it kind of like modern healthcare today. Everything's geared up to take care of the injury or take care of it after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of leading indicators still in today's business to say, hey, this employee is about to do something bad.
Or has been
doing things bad, out of compliance. We wonder why these accidents are happening. And what we find out is companies are really struggling around preventative measures versus it's easy to pay for something once something happens.
Well, that's because insurance exists. Hence your prior background. Right?
Yeah. The next best offer in products like ours is insurance.
Yep.
Which is I can pay $5 an hour on workers' comp premium.
And it's suddenly not my problem.
And it's not my problem. It's AIG's problem. It's the Hartford's problems.
Yep.
It's the traveler's problem. And they'll administer the claim. They'll pay for the pills, pay for the surgeries. And that's a whole different part of the company that I don't even have to worry about. And so that's kind of where the competition lies with us. But then we go back to the other problem that the supervisor's getting the new data and saying, hey, how do I deal with this new data? How do I do that? And so there's lots of hurdles to overcome when we think about, preventative today. And in our new product that we just built out, and is, it's the collision avoidance system. And so this helps this notifies the employee and the driver of a powered industrial truck, a crane, any type of equipment, not to get hit by it.
Yeah. Or that they're coming around a corner, they're going to be close.
Blind corners, it's beautiful.
Watch
it uses
out.
ultra wideband, so it sees around corners. It's a lot better than cameras because cameras only line of sight. So if somebody's coming from a blind, we can pick them up on the ultra wideband camera. Well, we talked to customers, and we did a slide that, in the month of May, 9 workers in America died from getting hit by forklifts.
That's terrible. That's crazy.
And you look at the stats and you say, okay, 95 people die a year. And then you just Google forklift deaths in May, news stories.
Right.
And they just pop out every state, everywhere you go. And you're like, now why wouldn't someone spend a couple $1,000
to solve this problem? Yeah.
Versus wait for the $3 to $5 million problem to happen to them? And not even the $3 to $5 million. It's the death. It's the PTSD of all the employees involved, what happens.
It's the families.
It's the production, what goes on.
And it's all
visiting the families.
And the time it takes to implement your safety changes, because you have to act as an executive, as a CEO. You have a forklift death. You have to be seen as putting in changes in place after that happens. So even if they're effective, not effective, kind of doesn't matter. You're going to go through motions to change safety protocols and make a show of doing this, which takes time, takes effort, takes energy, not just on the floor, but all the way through your management stack.
Yeah. And what's crazy is the questions we get. They're like, well, if we don't put it in, then what's going to happen? And you go, well what could happen is
your
death.
Odds. Yeah.
And then what they're also concerned about, well, if my employees don't react, my supervision, my leadership don't react to the data, am I more liable now? And you're like,
really?
And you're like going, wow,
but
that is just a jaded view.
Yeah.
That you're so worried about being smarter from the data versus knowing that the data exists and that these are issues. And we got to go correct them saying, I got the data, but I don't trust supervision leadership to actually act on it. And now I'm even more liable. You're like
crazy.
So you sit there in these hurdles and you're like going, wow, I never thought of that hurdle I had to overcome.
It's just the interesting parts of the sales process, right, that you never expect to come up against. It's like we're delivering you all the data, And now I'm concerned that if I have the data, I'm more liable if I don't act on the data.
Yeah. The worst thing you want to see in your process is the lawyer in the room.
Yeah.
And you're going, oh, I wonder what the lawyer's there for. You're going, is that...
that's good, right?
That's good.
Contract,
right? Exactly. They're going to expedite our contract or get our PO done really quick. And they're also like going, if we don't act on your data, aren't we more liable?
And you're like, how is that the case?
Yeah.
Are they afraid of that this is the newest canary in the coal mine, and you're going to put the canary in the mine and it's going to instantly pass out, right? That it's going to show how bad they have been? Is that actually more of a shame and a fear that they're exhibiting in the sales process, that they're kind of afraid to look under the hood?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's better off just to be stupid.
Yep.
I
think that all the time about myself. I mean, wouldn't it be nice to not have to worry about these things that I know are coming?
Exactly. It's like, oh, why do I know what's going to happen when I see this? You know, you're like, damn it, I'd just rather not be able to connect these dots together.
Yep.
And so that's the big challenge. It's just one of the challenges that I never thought we'd have to overcome, is that inaction of, Hardtech, of being able to produce so much data. You think now what language learning models, we talked about what we use, supervised, so we teach the models.
Yeah, you're training a machine learning algorithm, because it really is, when you produce it, it's an algorithm at the end of the day.
Yep.
It's, linear algebra, taking inputs and outputs and weighting tables. And this table, when it does this, looks like sitting. This table, when you put the math in, comes out, looks like standing. It's all statistics, just at a very large scale.
And now the system, so we thought about, the big IT suck and spend, and you go, now we're getting rid of dashboards, and the AI models just spit out, this is your answer. Yeah. This is what you need to do. You don't have to interpret barcodes, plots anymore. Yeah. This is your problem.
We see that, hey, your first shift employees are 45% more likely to get a strain injury. We don't know why that's happening, but it's happening on this shift.
What we love to see is your first shift employees are 45% more productive, and your first shift supervisor has 6,000 more steps than your second shift supervisor.
Yeah.
So he's walking by managing around. He's managing by walking around, and he's getting stuff done, and he's talking, and that's why the productivity is.
Yeah.
It's kind of, we had a case with a forklift that said, well, the least amount of used forklift had the most incidents of employee to human contact. And so we started asking them why. And they said, well, that's the crap forklift. No one likes driving it, and it has bad tires, bad visibilities, everything like that. And it's like, well, it has all of that
for a reason.
And employees drive it like crap, or they don't have the right visibility and everything else that's causing a heck of a lot of issues for you. So I don't know where we ended up on that question, but I think companies with preventative and really kind of moving to preventing injuries, proactive data versus dealing with it after the fact, kind of is the next step.
Well, and diving into that, this is like a mirror image to like the medtech industry, right? So like for the medical devices we develop, the very first buyer is not insurance. The very first buyer is private, right? Someone who really wants this insert device here is going to pay for it out of pocket because it's not reimbursable yet. And they're wealthy enough to just cash it out. You get those clients to give you enough clinical data and use data that you can then prove, hey, this device that costs money or treatment that costs money prevented them from using opiates because we fixed the problem instead of band-aided it. Or you show all these cost savings over time because it's the spike in cost and then versus the integrated over time, low and steady. And you need enough data and stats to prove to the actuaries, digging back to the insurance guys, you need to feed the nerds actionable data. And all of a sudden you see this magical moment happen in these medical devices when they truly get picked up by payers. And all of a sudden the end user isn't buying it anymore. It's like iPhones. iPhones took off because Apple didn't sell you and I an iPhone. AT&T paid Apple, and you paid monthly to AT&T, and all of a sudden we were all used to buying $300 and $400 smartphones in cash. Apple could sell a $600 or $800 smartphone because you were willing to finance it. Yeah. Without that, we would have never jumped to that expensive of a device being as ubiquitous as it became. Medical device is the same way. The payer is your insurance agent, and they know that, hey, I want to pay this one big cost and collect a little bit over time because it saves I can make more margin in that. This is I feel like the fight that you're in. Right. And what is the buyer for you guys? Can you get AIG or AGI or AGI, insurance company name here? Yeah. Can you convince them to pay for this or subsidize it? Just like Progressive with a safe car, little OBD2 ports that, measure your braking acceleration. Is this a market you can chase? Is this a buyer for you guys?
They definitely are. We have a great partnership with the Hartford. But all insurance companies, you said, are waiting on actuarial proof. And, you think, well, that's 8 quarters, 2 years, 12, 12 quarters, 3 years. Most of those actuarial tables stretch out 3 to 5 to 7 years to get their trends and say, hey, I'm willing to pay into it. And so what we have to kind of really think about, and the reason why we shifted to repetitive motion to collision avoidance with our system, in repetitive motion, we were chasing the little risk.
Over a long time.
Yeah, the small repetitive motion injury with our wearable.
And you have to be consistent for years to show that you avoided the injury.
Yeah, and we avoided the injuries and we changed behaviors. And so this has a haptic on it. It vibrates when the employee bends in a non-compliant manner. We had to be careful how many times we actually vibrated them because,
ignore it.
Yeah, or they're like ignore or it just become background noise. And so this chased, $8,000 to $15,000 type of injuries. And there's enough frequency there that somebody's willing to kind of look for an ROI.
But it took years to see if it was going to prevent that $8,000 injury, like years for that injury to build up, right? As we talked earlier about, your college students training the model, they're all 30-inch waists and they're healthy and their backs aren't bad yet. But they would have to wear that into their 30s to not have a bad back in their late 30s to prove that your device worked versus the standard, back injury that might occur in that same field.
Well, there's a good thing about there's a lot of industries that work employees pretty, we have some pretty horrific data that shows how hard people work.
Are you guys in agriculture with that device?
We do.
I just like fruit picking and produce, it would be brutal.
Yeah. So we actually started off in the fields of, California.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, exactly. To kind of get some real world.
Who's the worst case scenario?
Yeah. Who are the hardest jobs you don't want to work? I mean, you got it. Any type of picking. But what we found out is the pickers got smart. The pickers ended up walking down the rows. They don't walk down. They go on their knees. Who knew, right? So they took the bend out of it. Yeah. And so now they're closer to the product that they're picking because they go down the aisle on their knees and not the feet.
And now they have new injuries.
Yeah. Well, everybody has their way to kind of prevent the injury.
Yeah.
And so, that was their accommodation, was to go down the knees. But we chased the little R for so long. And that was the $15,000 injury. And then when we moved into collision avoidance, we chased the big R. Yeah. Big R meaning, $5 million claim, shutting down production, a death, an amputation, a crushing, something like that, where people go, oh yeah, I don't need to wait 2 years, 3 years to say that this will happen. We know 1 in every 11 forklifts have some type of injury incident a year.
Really?
Yeah. So 35,000 injuries a year from forklifts. And so the stats are saying 1 in 11 that a forklift will hit somebody.
Yeah. Do some kind of damage.
Do some kind of damage, and so there's 100 deaths. So there's 35,000 injuries, 100 deaths. Those injuries can be anything from, an amputation, a crush, or to basically most of them are running over toes.
Yep.
Kind of the pallet mules, the feet get too close, those type of things. And so we went after that big R risk. And so we got out of the ROI game.
Yeah. And it's the emotional risk. So you're actually taking money on the table, but also putting into the bet your emotional risk. Everyone's like, oh yeah, everyone's back gets hurt eventually if you're in manual labor. It's like cost of doing business,
but my aching back, there's a reason why that phrase came into existence. It's not just because, hey, there's everybody has an aching back.
But as an executive, a business owner, a manager, you're like, oh no, I never actually want to see an employee die. Right. I would have to carry that emotional burden. This is much more than a financial matter at the moment.
Yeah.
You can really sell emotionally, which is a great way to get someone to empathize with the R. Bad back, it's really hard to get someone to truly care.
That's right.
It's just suffering. I'm paying them to suffer. Like this is the job, but you're never paying someone to die.
Yeah. No one will ever forget that either.
Right.
I was a chief operating officer, CEO of a natural gas utility. And I can remember the first time we had someone die on the job site and we're like, wow. And it wasn't from natural causes.
That's still a bummer.
Yeah. It was still a bummer. And but you're like, holy, how can we prevent that from ever happening again?
I couldn't live if this was my fault.
Yeah.
This was hard enough that it happened organically.
If I had a PO on my desk that I could have prevented this,
right, I would have paid it.
I would have paid it if I only knew.
It goes beyond technology. It goes beyond the business. It gets very personal immediately.
Yeah.
Right. The other question I was going to ask was on the business case side. So you said you chased the smaller claims for a while, and then you said, okay, we're going to start going towards forklifts. And it sounds like from one of our previous conversations that was really whenever you guys started to see some good adoption from those companies. What was sort of that like decision-making matrix where you made that pivot? I think that in software, pivoting is difficult, but I think that in hardware, it's like you have to go on this brand new journey potentially. So I'm just curious on like what that really looked like.
Yeah, and how did that fit in the timeline of the story of the company?
So we'll have to fit all this into the timeline. So we'll have to
we're back at Amazon, and you're scaling. What led to the pivot?
And so, you read the book Habits, and you go, Febreze got out there and they said, who am I going to sell to? And everybody says, oh, you'll sell to the smokers and the people who own cats. The litter box commercial. And what they found out was the people that were buying Febreze was buying it for the new house. They get the people that were really kind of clean freaks.
Mm-hmm. And because if you're a smoker or cat litter box, you've been living with smells forever.
No, they don't bother you. You heard it. Nose blind. They're in their own commercial. So we made the mistake of chasing bad companies or companies that didn't really have great safety records. And what we had to learn was we needed to chase companies that were really good at safety.
That cared.
Yeah. That had the culture around safety, that had the culture around business process improvement, innovation, utilizing tech, had ways to roll out tech, ways to roll out hardware.
And you had an evangelist that cared in this culture.
Yes.
Right? You had an evangelist to help bring you into the fold.
Yeah. And so we went down, we made the first mistake of chasing bad companies.
Because you thought they had the most risk and you could help them the most.
ROI.
Yeah. ROI, radio and internet.
Yeah. Lots of injuries, prevent a lot of injuries. Boom.
Yeah.
And so, that kind of leads you to Amazon. They're in the paper all the time with their injuries. And you go, oh, great. We got the the poster child. But there's so much to the sale and so much to everything. Mm-hmm. It's just not, do you have a lot of injuries that we can prevent? Or do you have whatever your problem is? There's the culture around acceptance. There's, technology adoption. It's the scalability of not only you, but can they scale with you?
Well, and
do they have processes to scale?
And how big are they? Because if they're so big, the scale might be so hard to join.
Yeah,
right. It's the right size client for where you guys are in process.
Yeah, we were definitely not the right size. We basically became one horse pony, one trick pony.
So you got the Walmart client.
Yeah, you got the Walmart client. If you're a founder,
Amazon clients is like the same thing, right?
We should rename the rule.
Yeah, it's if I had to give any advice to a startup founder is choose carefully your first client sets. You can definitely. What do you hit it when your wife is smoking and hot and you're the ugly guy? You can definitely out hit it or whatever else.
I shouldn't say that.
Out kick your coverage. You can out kick your coverage. You're hitting above your weight.
Yeah, I internalize this because when my wife and I go grocery shopping, they put the divider between us. Yeah, I know. I've done that.
Exactly. No. Sorry, sir. What are you doing?
Is this man bothering you?
Kind of creepy.
Oh man. So it's that the other adage is like you never want all your eggs in one basket, right?
Yeah.
It's fit of a client, and also even if they're a great fit, are they healthy for you?
Yeah, we were probably the largest industrial wearable company at that point in time overnight.
Yeah.
We went from 9 employees to 50 employees in like 3 months. And now the next, 4 months, the next bit of advice is hire HR person first.
Right.
Because you're willing to hire anybody.
Right. Yeah. And trying to tell you, no, we cannot hire this guy. No, the HR person, you need that great filter.
Exactly. Because all you're seeing is how late all your employees are working and how much you're burning them out. And they're like, no, this is going to cause you so much problems at the end. Yeah.
So you've hit Amazon and it's going great. How does it pivot? So, what is the...
Yeah, what happens, and I think you see this all in the wearable world, is that employee adoption. It's not that the devices don't work, is how can you get them to wear it so they can work?
Right.
And, some people go, it's form and function. Some people will say, hey, it's no matter what, you're monitoring me, you're
big
tracking
brothers.
me, there's big brothers. And we had to go to the decision that says, how do we create mandatory wear of our wearable? Because without mandatory wear, we're always going to struggle without a firm mandate from the leadership that says you shall wear this.
And buy-in from the supervisors.
Because now we're giving them new data that doesn't say that they're doing a good job.
How do you protect them?
Yeah, how do you protect them so that you're still there? They're evangelizing for you, saying this is something that we got to do.
And why do those employees, like, why was there resistance there?
Well, it's kind of like driving. I'll put on my insurance hat here. If you ask everybody thinks they're a good driver. You know, are you a good driver? Everybody's going to say I'm a good driver.
Yeah, I do it every day. Of course I am.
Yeah, I'm a good driver. And yet, no, there's a scale, 1 to 10, where everybody fits in the driving. And I can tell you my kids are terrible drivers. But if you ask them, and they're 27, 25, and 21.
Because you've been through a couple cars now, right?
Yeah, we've had about 6 or 7 accidents.
Yeah. That is on the lower end of that bell curve. Holy cow.
And they're not good drivers. Some of them are, but everybody thinks they're a hardworking employee. Everybody thinks that they're putting in the effort.
And that they're safe.
And
as safe as they can be. They're more productive if they're not safe, maybe. And they pride themselves on that.
Yeah. And we can create metrics that show you, are you a hard worker, but you cut corners? Mm-hmm. Are you a hard worker and a safe worker? Are you just not a hard worker?
Yeah.
And in the worst box, you're not a hard worker
and you cut corners.
Mm-hmm. And employees, I wouldn't necessarily care for that. And so you kind of understand the resistance. And so one of the big things we kind of try to tell companies is you can't use this data for harm. You're using it to train, to bring people up, to improve, to get better, not for their employee evaluations. But people just can't help it. They see that negative data and they just can't help themselves and say,
You guys get like a red herring where like your data doesn't allow that, but the camera systems is used for productivity, and that's where they get the productivity data.
Yeah. That's the problem. That camera right there.
That's it.
Right. And so we have to that's probably one of the biggest hurdles to overcome with employees is that the companies here are going to use it so you can hold your kids when you're 50 years old without back problems.
Yep.
And this is going to help you for the long term. And once we were seeing kind of this trend of, hey, I can't get my employees to wear it all the time. I can only get X%. Mm-hmm. We got to figure out a way to get it to mandatory wear. And then one of an automotive supplier came to us and said they just killed someone with a forklift.
And that was a pivotal moment to say, hey, we have to do this now.
We had to do this.
We lost Bob. In memory of Bob, we have to do this so we don't lose another Bob. We got to find
a solution.
Yeah.
And then we're in a pivotal moment of the company is we lost our Amazon contract on this kind of wear issue and saying we're coming off the deep dive of lessons learned. What can we do differently? How can we address this? And so we got to get mandatory wear. Mm-hmm. Lo and behold, this automotive supplier comes to us. We lost Bob.
Yep.
And we say, wow, if we could design a wearable that requires mandatory wear, and we have all this great data around repetitive motion, we don't need to lose that. We can still hold on to our past.
Carry it forward.
And because the companies want that. They know it works. But, how can I create that mandatory wear that requires the wear so I can get the improvements in repetitive motion and I can stop people from getting hit by forklifts? And that's what we set off to design when the supplier came to us and said, we had a forklift accident and can you help us?
God, that's awesome. So you had a client come to you with the problem that also helped you get over the friction of sales. They were so emotionally ready to move because of this event that had happened and how sad and terrible it is. You guys now have, they're a ready buyer, right? This is your camp. Like there's a difference between trying to convince someone to buy a thing they don't need and finding a ready buyer. Right, that they want this thing right now, and like we like alike in like doing business development for Glassport and is like being a good real estate agent. This is your term, so it's not everyone's looking to buy a house right now,
right?
But you want to be the realtor they call when they're ready to buy.
Exactly, you want to be right there. And we worked with this company before on the repetitive motion side for their new employees.
Sure,
and they were like, "Yeah, we love your product. We only do it for new employees because we can't get our legacy employees. But is there a way you could do this?" And so we went ahead and tested RFID, Bluetooth, using Wi-Fi signals.
Oh man, that had to be
everything.
The Wi-Fi one had to be a total boondoggle. That would be so crazy.
Trying to predict how far somebody is away by the signal strength is just crazy. And so we did all that, and we settled on ultra wideband.
Yeah, UWE is incredible at what it does.
Yeah, and there's a reason the Apple picked it for the AirTag and that. And so we went ahead and did the research on UWB. We settled on that and said what it would take to put an ultra wideband sensor chip in our hardware.
Yep.
And lo and behold, we did all the research and the work, and we had a client that was willing to work with us.
That's right.
They had autonomous vehicles. We were able to put it on their autonomous vehicles.
Oh, and
we were
integrate with their control systems?
Yeah, we had to do that kind of
great.
stuff, make sure there's no co-interference, and then with their forklifts. And lo and behold, companies are like, oh, you can protect my autonomous vehicles? They're like, yeah, but we can also protect those employees too.
Right. It is just an incredible story of like pivoting and finding that product market fit. I mean, from starting off at Amazon and having to spool up this company and no HR person, we need to hire like crazy, and trying to deliver to the Walmart or Amazon client and figuring out, okay, we can't get any adoption on the side of the workers, and then having the opportunity to say, hey, how can we make it required? You find a unique angle with the forklifts and the actual machinery where they have to wear the device because they have to make sure that they don't hit the machinery or the machinery hits them, and boom.
Yeah, that's exactly the story. And
how long did that actually take? It sounds really bad.
Yeah, that was
This is a 45-minute podcast. It didn't take 45 minutes, I'm sure.
No, you think about, Modjoul, I said 9 years, our anniversary. The first 3 years is to figure out the wearable. The next 3 years were dark because of COVID.
Yep.
And then the next 3 years was this post-Amazon retooling. What are we going to do next? In the meantime, you're doing capital raises, convincing people.
I was just going to ask, how did you survive through the 3 different, call it life stages so far of the business?
Yeah,
because you're venture backed at the beginning. Is that correct?
Angel backed by himself.
Okay, so you guys personal capital, personal backed, like privately funded.
First couple of years, yep.
Okay, and then you get to this, the Amazon scale. So do you raise to do that, or is that all private?
No, now you're like, I don't want anybody's money.
Oh, man.
We got the biggest client ever. We're it. Right?
We want dilution now. Come on, we're this is winning. Of course you want to invest in us now.
Yeah.
We're going to hold on to our cap table percentages. And so. We took some money. Obviously, Amazon and Industrial Innovation Fund invested in us.
Yeah,
and that's a public knowledge out there. And so we took their money and then had a little bit of a round just to make sure we can scale okay. And then, we lost, so to speak, the Amazon deal.
Yeah, the big client.
So
you contract.
So we have to contract.
Yep.
And now we got to tell a story all over again.
Yep.
And then you got to tell the story and you have to say the H word out loud, which is hardware.
Oh, yeah.
And say, yep, we're a hardware company.
Yep.
But Grant, you were telling me hardware is the new thing.
It is. It's this thing that SaaS got really big early on, right? When Apple and Android came out, and you had hardware in people's pockets that no company had to develop because these behemoths did. You had the SaaS explosion of everything you can do in SaaS. And then you had the boom at home of at-home IoT. Your Nest thermostats, your smart door locks, your insert smart things here, and that got huge. And now we're seeing this explosion of that hardware bridge. Because really, you're a software company. You sell data, and you manipulate data to make software choices to enable real-world outcomes outside of your hardware. Your hardware is your necessary evil to be the bridge of that data.
Exactly right.
And that's, we see it starting to really infuse into med device, into industrial, into safety, because, you guys have needs that the iPhone can't fix. Right, the iPhone is a general purpose tool.
How many times I've heard, well, can't the iPhone do that?
Yeah, right.
I'm like, oh.
Yeah. What was it? You could have gotten a great proof of concept prototype built on an iPhone probably over a weekend.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It has sensors on there for sure. It's got a UWB.
And you can make, look, this is what it's going to work like, but I need a device that is rugged, robust, industrial, easy to use, and not a personal device.
Yeah.
Right? And that's how it works. So this is that whole story of the necessary evil of hard tech to make a SaaS company work these days. Because SaaS by itself isn't cool anymore. Because if you're just software, AI is going to take your lunch anyways. So this is kind of why we see this resurgence of hard tech in the venture community here in the Midwest.
Well, that's awesome. So I'm out in Seattle, so they haven't got that memo yet.
Yeah.
So, they're still saying SaaS, but we just finished our last round, so we were able to raise, and so we just finished our last round. But it's a lot of work for hard tech guys with software, and we're kind of 50-50. Our revenue is 50% hardware, 50% software, and of course over time you don't buy hardware anymore. So the 5 years that you're amortizing your hardware out, you're just getting software revenue.
That's right.
But as startups, you're always selling. There's always more
new
clients, and so the hardware mix is always looking like you're a big hardware mix versus the software mix. And then, as you're saying, the hardware guys, they actually produce the data.
Yes, it's the goose that lays the egg.
And they're like, wait a minute, is the data the value of the company, the software subscription the value of the company, or the fact that we have 3 or 4 products out there that are hardware based that we can sell into
and that are sticky, and then once a client's adopted it, it's sunk cost fallacy. we already own this hardware. We have to use the system.
And then you see that most VCs are like, well, they're not, and I don't want to say sophisticated, but they're very single-minded in their risk appetite.
I was just going to ask, I'm like, you can probably pivot your pitch to who you're talking to. Yeah. To certain VCs, you put on, hey, I'm a SaaS hat. We have this necessary evil hardware. Don't worry about that. We crack the code. SaaS is what we really do. And then you talk to the guys that are in Hardtech that want that sticky factor that to prove you're a sales process can get them to buy into hardware, which means you installed it and they're never leaving. Yeah,
Grant, I need your Rolodex, man. Because on my Rolodex is all the SaaS guys are like, oh, do you really have to have that hardware?
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't there some company out there you can just have them build your hardware for you? I'm like,
right.
Yeah, that model doesn't feel that good to me.
Right. Yeah. It's not a shocker to me at all that you're able to raise. I mean, I think just hearing your story on the evolution, obviously your pedigree and your background as well, to where you've gotten the company today. I mean, even at the later stages, as much as it does become a spreadsheet game once you get to the A and beyond, it's still about betting on that founder and their ability to iterate and pivot over time. And I feel like throughout this entire conversation, that's all I've heard, and it's just been just well done. I mean, it's just it really,
one day somebody's going to say, Eric, you're going to have to stop pivoting and find your niche. But we added 21 new customers in the first quarter.
Oh, congrats!
It was our best quarter.
Well done.
That's
and
awesome.
So with this major pivot, we also pivoted our distribution sales strategy as well, away from kind of the insurance companies and using a different channel. So, but it's been a nice pivot for us. Hardware is, I love it. I'm a mechanical engineer, just like Grant. We're all, I love the tour I got today, and I'm like, oh, you got this. Where's your, you have a sewing machine? Yeah, I have a sewing machine. You have your laser engravers. You have your, all your 3D printers. And so, I can really appreciate what you guys have here, because we have a small version of this in our own place just to be able to prototype fast.
Yep.
But when you go to, Sandpoint Road, people don't want to talk about my 3D printers and my engravers. They want to, what's my offshore to onshore software engineering expense and those type of things.
Sure.
And so that's the big challenge. And so we keep firmware in house. We do our firmware. We actually moved our software engineering in house, but we were pretty much dominated offshore software engineering for the first 6 years of our
embedded software, or just the upscale software, like the higher in the stack?
Yeah, everything for us. So
everything was offshore,
and
then you onshored your firmware for you, and the internal or just onshore?
No, it's internal for us.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we've built it all on bare metal. So it's
what are you building on?
So we don't build on anybody's platform. It's our own code. So,
What microcontroller are you guys using?
Quectels.
Yep.
XYZ.
They're inserting family with UWB built in. That's fantastic.
If everybody listening can also sign the NDA, right?
Yeah, exactly right. But it's awesome to see you guys bring that in house, because it's one of these stories in Hardtech that if you talk to a SaaS founder, they know software's never done. They're never going to be able to turn down their software development team, because you're always providing updates. It's always doing that. And in Hardtech, it used to be you could just go launch a product and that was it. Right? So some sustaining in manufacturing, but you didn't have to develop new things. Once you started connecting to the internet, security, safety, things like that, now you need that embedded software or firmware team to always provide safety and software updates. And that's, I think, the thing that people are starting to learn in Hardtech.
Yeah, you can, the way we get pushed all the time to go, just use third-party hardware. You just use third-party hardware. Why do you build your own hardware?
Mm-hmm.
And, I could see a world where we use third-party hardware to do what we do, but we have to be able to control the firmware.
Yeah.
The firmware is really where the customer meets the company.
Mm-hmm.
How do we communicate their needs and demands and their business features, whatever they want done, is not out of the cloud. It's really what's happening on the shop floor or right there at the point of the device.
Yeah.
And be able to control the firmware is really important. And these third-party hardware guys don't let you have access to the firmware.
Because they can't. Because that would be too many cats in the kitchen.
Yeah, everybody's going to be, and so, what are you going to do with it? Well, and so we have to control the firmware to really kind of deliver anything from a warehouse operation to a farm to a manufacturing. They all have different types of demands that we have to get going on. And so that's why we keep firmware as ourselves, because it does provide the fingers to that glove that we need.
It's part of your sales process, right?
Yep.
You can say, I actually can change that for you.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's me. It's not any of my vendors. It is me. I can change that for you.
I can change that parameter you need. I have, so for our world, hey, I got a 15 mile per hour forklift. I got a 3 mile per hour forklift. Totally different response times out there, totally different halo sizes, everything else. I got to be able to customize all that for them and do that. So that's kind of probably one of our value adds. Now, how scalable is that? We haven't hit that question yet. That, if you have 5,000 customers, 10,000 customers,
as long as
you'll
the SaaS
figure it
model
out. You'll figure it out along the way.
Exactly.
Right? Exactly. The next peak, whenever you get to scale it and you realize, okay, we could probably go here and do this, and then we could probably figure it out that way.
Well, and then your operator come look at look at all of your expenses versus your revenue. Like, we got to drop the clients that make us do this that are below this number, because they'll,
and they realize it's your biggest clients too.
Right?
You're like, no,
it's one of the things. Like, if the number's red, it's bad. Number's green, it's good. So here are the green numbers. We keep those, and the red ones, we got to go find a way to pivot and fix.
Yeah, DeAndre, you're right. So you figure it out along the way is one of my favorite things to say.
Build the plane while you're flying it.
Yep. And one thing leads to the other.
Yep.
Always.
You never know the next innovation. You just got to stay in the game.
And you couldn't have called it. You couldn't have sat down in a boardroom and predicted the path that you're on.
No way. You're exactly right. No way would I've ever said we went from here to this pivot to over here.
Yeah.
Because we were solving a whole bunch of different problems along the way. So that one thing leads to the other. You got to have the one thing.
Yep.
If you don't have the one thing, you can't go to the other.
Eric, I need you to help me when we're talking to new clients. Like, why can't you tell me how long, how much, to like the dollar? Like, you've been doing this for a decade. You should be able to tell me how much. I was like, I can't guess this within any amount of certainty.
Oh, 100%.
No one knows what's going to happen tomorrow in new product or Hardtech, or what your customers are going to ask the moment we go trial an alpha prototype at your first potential customer shop. They're going to ask me to change probably your entire product.
It happens all the time, and then of course the sales team's so excited.
Oh, and they're beating down the doors of those engineers.
I got one for you.
Exactly.
But that's not what we do at all.
My favorite phrase: if you guys could just,
yes. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, you love the sales guys. Hey, if we could just do this, and you're like,
I'd have this big client or this new deal to sign on. If you could just,
yeah. So that's kind of one of our big challenges out there. But I love that. One thing leads to the other, and you gotta have something to build from, and for us. Our story about starting on the employee side and building out this repetitive motion models and everything else really differentiated us in the market now for collision avoidance, because our company, our products are from the employee point of view now. How do I keep the employee safe? And our competitors' products are about the forklift point of view or the powered industrial truck point of view. How do I stop it from hitting someone? Two different entirely ways to kind of solve the problem. We're trying to protect the employee from all types of injuries. They're only trying to protect it from one.
Yeah.
Got it.
And that's when we go into our sales mode, and as I'm doing right here on the call.
Yeah. That's right.
That's really what's our strategic differentiation out there in the marketplace, is that we just put a halo around that employee, from forklift collisions to their industrial repetitive motion problems. And if they pass out on the job or have a heart attack on the job, they fall on the floor.
Oh, you can alert on that.
We can alert on that as well.
Incredible.
If they're having a problem.
Your life alert.
Your life alert, exactly. They can press the button, help, I'm falling, or I'm having a problem.
Or
they can press a button.
Caught in a piece of machinery, I've hit the E-stop, but I can't get out.
Yeah, they can do all that with ours. So it really puts that employee.
And with the beacon, you actually have decent location on them.
Oh, we can get down to, foot.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you really can direct emergency people to the right place.
We can triangulate it right there and help them out tremendously.
That's amazing. So again,
one thing leads to another, and that's where we'll end the podcast. It's absolutely fantastic. Eric, thank you so much for coming in. Super glad it worked out. Everybody, this is the Hardtech Podcast with Eric Martinez, CEO of Modjoul, DeAndre, and Grant. See you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.